Today I will be teaching you a short story from your book Treasure Trove Volume 2 Short Stories, that is chapter number 7. The name of the short story is The Little Matchgirl. To understand this story, I have just divided this story into different headings. Okay, the first one is the author of the story. The author of the story here is Hans Christian Andersen. Second thing we are going to read is the title of the story, how the title of the story is apt. Third thing we are going to read is the themes. Okay, what are the themes in the story? The fourth thing, the characters. The fifth is the setting. Sixth is the plot. And seventh is the summary. After doing this, we will be reading the text of the story. Yes, children, so now let us start with our story. Let us first of all know something about the writer of the story, and the name of the writer of the story is Hans Christian Andersen. Now, Hans Christian Andersen was a Danish writer best known for his fairy tales. Danish is the language which is spoken in Denmark. However, his stories are not restricted to children alone and have themes of universal appeal that transcends age and culture. Andersen had a very unhappy childhood, and much of his stories reflect this sadness, dealing with loss and death. Now here we will see even this story, the story which is written by him. The name is The Little Match Girl, is one such story. Okay, it is set around Christmas. The story tells of a little girl who, unable to sell her matchsticks, dies of cold and hunger on the streets even as people are celebrating the birth of the Christ child inside their warm and cozy homes. Now, next thing is we should also know little bit about the how the title of the story, that is The Little Match Girl, is apt title. So for the appropriateness of the title of any story is judged by how well it reflects the content of the story. The title The Little Match Girl is quite an apt title as it revolves around the little girl who sells matchsticks. It's revolving around a little girl. The author has not given any name to the girl, and she is referred to in the entire story as a poor little girl. This indicates that the story was just one of many poor children belonging to the lower category of the society during the Victorian era, who had to face the hardship because of the poverty. So the title is appropriate. Now we come to the themes. Okay, what are the themes of the story? So here we have two themes. The first one is the class differentiation, and the second one is the hope and faith. So let us see one by one. The first one is here, the class differentiation. Now you see the story was written in Victorian era. So what do you mean by Victorian era? Victorian era is the period between 1837 and 1901. So this period of 63 years is called Victorian era. Why? Because in the history of United Kingdom, the reign of Queen Victoria's reign is called as the Victorian era. So during Victorian era, the European society was divided into three categories. We can say the first one is three classes. The first one is here the aristocratic class, and the second is the middle class, and the third one is the underclass. And there is huge gap between the financial conditions of these three classes here. Now our protagonist, our heroine of the story, that is the poor little girl, little match girl, she belongs to the third class of the society, and that is the underclass. How do we come to know that she belongs to this? So by seeing the girl's clothes. The girl's clothes and her house, as having only the roof through which the wind whistled and large cracks were stuffed with rocks and rags, indicate that she belonged to the underclass of the society. It was because of their poor financial condition that the little girl was sent on a cold night to sell matches. Although not referred directly, but it can be inferred that her father might have have been unemployed and out of frustration and dejection used to beat his daughter. In the Victorian era, children were regarded by such people as a miniature adults who were used for cheap labors. So cheap labor. Now we come to the now we will just, and on the other hand, so she belongs to that. On the other hand, there were rich people. Okay, so these rich people, they were celebrated. When this girl is outside, when she is out in the cold, sent by her father, at the same time in the society, people are celebrating the birth of the Christ child inside their warm cozy homes, okay, and enjoying the feast. So there is class differentiation. Now we come to the second theme, and the second theme is the faith and hope. So now what is hope, children? So hope is an expectation of positive outcome related to some circumstances of one's life. And what is faith? Faith is trust in the God that we shall receive the things which we wish for. So in this story, the little match girl had the hope that she would pull through the difficulties, and therefore she continued to keep herself warm by lighting the matches. She had faith in God that he would help her. When she lit a match and saw her grandmother, she did not want to lose her and therefore lighted the whole bundle of matches. She pleaded with her grandmother to take her to the heaven and her where there would be neither cold nor hunger or any kind of abuse. So we see this as two themes on which the story is basically based, the class differentiation and the faith and hope. Now we come to the style of the story. So now in this style we will take up one by one. Narration. It is a narration. The story follows the style of third person narration. The author takes the readers with him to witness the hardship being faced by the little girl. Now the second thing is symbolism. Okay, so here symbols are essentially words which communicate more than their literal meaning. The author has used simple language which is apt for a fairy tale, as it is a fairy tale, but he has used here number of symbols. The first one is the iron stove. Okay, so iron stove here, which is when she lights the first match, she sees a vision, okay, or hallucination, and that is the iron stove. So it is a symbol of feeling of warmth and safety. Second is Christmas tree. Christmas tree here, the evergreen Christmas tree is a sign of undying life, rebirth. Yes, and the third symbol here is in the form of falling stars. Okay, now this falling stars has been referred to in the story by the little girl as a symbol of soul ascending to God. And whose soul was ascending to God? To God, the last one. In the last, her vision is also symbol of the girl's soul ascending into the heaven. And then matches. Okay, matches are symbol, very important, matches plays very important role. Yes, children, now let us see the setting of the story. The story is set on New Year's Eve. It was cold and snowy outside, with the wind making it colder. The sky was dark, with clouds filling it up. This set a gloomy, fearful atmosphere, hinting that something bad was likely to happen. Yes, children. So now let us see the plot of the story. A poor little girl sent by her father to sell matches on a cold New Year Eve. Unable to sell any matches, she sat near a wall. She lit a match to keep herself warm. In its light, she felt as if she were sitting before a hot stove. As she lit the second match, she saw the vision of a roasted goose. She lit the third match and had the vision of a huge Christmas tree lit with candles. When she lit the fourth match, she saw the vision of her dead grandmother. She embraced her and told her to carry her off to heaven.
Next morning, her frozen dead body was found with burnt out matches. Okay, children, so now this is the plot of the story. Now we are going to see the story. Now we have already seen all the important things to know a story, that is the title of the story, the writer of the story, an introduction, plot of the story, style of the story, title. So now we are going to read the story in the detail, or we can say that summary of the story. Okay, that is only left. Or before this, one thing is also left here, and that is the characterization of the story. Now for the characterization of the story, now there are two important characters here. The first one is the little girl. Okay, now this little nameless girl is the main character of the story. Okay, and now here she is small, though her age is not mentioned. Okay, not mentioned, but from the size of the slipper which belongs to her mother and which were too big for her, it appears that she might have been between 7 to 10 years old. Besides, she has been described as having little feet and little hands. She had rosy cheek and long curly hair. She belonged to the poor household as reflected through the description of her house. At home it was cold, for above her she had only the roof through which the wind whistles, even though the largest cracks were stuffed up with the straw and rags. On the chilly winter evening, she did not have enough warm clothes to protect herself from the cold. She had to walk barefoot through the snow. Now, now we will see the character of her grandmother. Okay, the little girl's grandmother was dead, but was the only person whom she remembered fondly. She had been described as only one who loved the little girl. It seems that the little girl used to hear stories from her grandmother. She remembered her grandmother's view about the stars falling from the sky. Okay, children, now we'll be seeing the story in detail. Okay, so you see here, it was a terribly cold and dark evening, the last evening of the year. In this dark and chilly evening, a little poor girl was sent by her father to sell matches. She walked barefoot. The slippers which she was wearing were her mother's and therefore too big, and she lost them. She could not sell any matches and was afraid of going home because of the fear of being beaten by her father. She was shivering with cold and hunger, but continued to move slowly. She huddled herself against a wall and sat down. Her hands became numb. To keep herself warm, she lighted a match. She felt the warm light flame as she was sitting before a large iron stove. She tried to warm her feet, but the flame went out. She rubbed another match against the wall, and as the light fell on the wall, it became transparent, from where she could see the inside of the room. She saw on a table a roast goose stuffed with apple and dried plums, which hopped down from the dish and came up to her. The match went out, and she had nothing but a cold, damp wall. She lighted another match, and this time she saw a huge Christmas tree with thousands of lights burning on its green branches. But the moment she stretched her hands towards them, the match went out. She felt as if the light of the Christmas tree were going higher and higher and forming the stars. The little girl then saw a star fall and thought that someone might have died, as her grandmother had told her that when a star falls, a soul ascends to God. She drew another match, and in the light she saw her loving grandmother. This time she thought that if the match were to run out, her mother her grandmother would disappear, just like the Christmas tree before. So she struck the whole bundle of the matches on the wall, and there appeared a brilliant light. She pleaded with her grandmother to take her to heaven, and both of them flew in the brightness and in the joy to be with God. The next morning, the little girl's dead body was found with burnt out matches clutched between her fingers. So, children, the story gets over here, and I hope with this session you are able to understand the story well. Thank you, children.